Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. Psychic Medium Jennifer Hall here. Thanks for joining me. In this video, I am sharing a little bit more about my story. So a couple weeks back, I shared a video about finding out that I was a medium. So what that looked like, what that felt like, what the circumstances were around that. I'm going to link the link down in the description box below. If you haven't watched it, you might want to check it out. But then I kind of just stopped my story at finding out that I was a medium. So I had a lot of people asking, okay, but then what? What happened next? So in this video, I'm going to kind of continue my story a little bit, mainly just chatting about what it was like to tell my friends and family that I'm a medium, that this is what I'm doing, this is kind of my new reality, and this is what I'm going to be practicing and pursuing to help other people. And so I want to share with you guys a little bit about how they reacted, what it felt like to go through that, and just kind of my experience altogether. So if that's something that interests you, stick around, let's get to it.
Welcome to Spirit Speaks with Psychic Medium Jennifer Hall.
So at the end of the other video that I posted, I kind of just ended it. I sort of didn't really know where to go next. I didn't want to make it a very long video. So I just sort of kept it as what it felt like to realize that I was a medium. And then I kind of just stopped, like I said. So in this video, I kind of want to share with you, because there was so much more that came after that, especially at that time in my life. There was one particular summer when all of this kind of transpired. And my next step was literally telling people, I guess, telling my friends and family that this was kind of my new reality. And I don't think I really I definitely didn't stand on the hilltops and scream it out to everybody. It was kind of secretive at first because I didn't really know how people were going to react. And the work that I do is very controversial, and it's not lost on me that it's not something that everybody believes in, that everybody is really supportive of. And especially when you've known someone your whole entire life, and then finding out that this is something that they're doing, or that they're going to go and pursue, or that they're, claiming to be able to talk to dead people. I get it. It sounds wild. It sounds crazy. And to be honest, I was so in a vulnerable place to begin with. I was trying to figure it all out on my own that I kind of just decided I didn't want everybody else's opinion. I didn't want to kind of stand on the rooftops and shout this out and get everybody's ideas and opinions around it. So I did keep it very quiet at first. Now, at the time, I was, again, trying to figure it all out. I was chatting with my spirit guides, with my angels, and kind of just trying to really get a little bit of guidance around which way to go with this gift, or whatever we want to call it, this ability, I guess, that I was kind of honing and I was really starting to practice with. So what was I to do with that, really? I was just trying to get some messages and some guidance around what came next. And literally the next step was to kind of start telling people. And I was like, are you sure? I remember automatic writing one day in the backyard. My little girls, they were quite young and they were just playing on a beautiful summer day. They were kind of having a great time. And I was sitting there on my back deck with a notebook and like furiously writing with spirit, trying to figure out, what do I do next? And the next step was to kind of tell people. And I was like, I can't do that. That's scary for me. I'm not really wanting to be in the limelight or the spotlight. I don't want everybody to judge me. And, I realize now that that was just not being confident in my abilities. That was being really kind of not trusting of what I was really feeling. And I mean, granted, because I had just found out, I was just barely coming to the realization that this was something that I was able to do, but I hadn't processed it enough, I think. So I kind of felt very hesitant to go out and tell people. So I kind of, though, as I mentioned in my last video, this is like the one thing in my whole entire life that I've just done. And I've just done it without really thinking too hard around it. I just sort of have surrendered to spirit and said, okay, if this is what you want to do with me, if this is something that we can partner with, if this is something that you can utilize me as a medium, literally as a conduit to get these messages to other people, fine, so be it. I'm going to get out of the way. And that's totally out of character for me, so I'm not sure where that came from or why that came about. But it did, and I'm lucky that it did, and I'm grateful that I had that mentality at the beginning, because I think I just knew nothing of it. I knew nothing. I didn't know what to expect whatsoever. I had nobody to guide me at the time, nobody to say like, hey, you're a medium, this is what you need to do. I was just kind of high and dry on my own with spirit, obviously. So that's what I turned to. So this particular afternoon, I was, writing with spirit and just kind of getting some ideas. If you want to know how to do some automatic writing, it's like an incredible tool to use, whether you are kind of of writing with your inner being or writing with your spirit guide or a deceased loved one. I have a video about that. I'll link it below as well. But that's kind of what my go-to resource was. It was my go-to communication with my spirit guides at the time. And I remember totally unconsciously, without even thinking, my spirit guide was giving me these names, and I wrote down 8 names of friends. Literally, they were friends, but people that I hadn't really connected with in a long time. And some of them very new friends, some of them very old friends that I hadn't connected with in a while. And I wrote down their names, and Spirit told me, you need to contact them, because really I needed to practice doing what I was supposed to be doing. And in order to practice being a medium, you have to tell people that you're a medium. So I was like, ooh, like, okay, fine. And when I looked at the list after this particular channeling session, I realized, I was like, every single one of these people, they were all girls, they just happened to be, but every single one of these girls was so non-judgmental. At least I thought so. Turns out that some of them maybe were a little bit, but that didn't matter. But most of them, I was like, okay, like, these are good people. And I know that they're going to support me and that they will, you know, whether they think I'm wacko or not, that's besides the point. I know that when I look at their names, I know that they can benefit from some messages. I know that, you know, there's a place for a mediumship in their life, or a medium, kind of some messages coming through for them. And I also know that they're not going to be really mean to me because I was scared that people wouldn't understand. So next step was to reach out and contact these 8 people. I'm pretty sure I did it by Facebook. It was kind of my social media choice at the time, I guess. And I just sort of sent a message. I think I sent the same message to every single person, maybe as a group thing. I don't really remember, but to be honest, I just reached out and I just said, listen, this isn't easy for me. This isn't something that comes naturally for me to talk about this, but this is what's been going on in my life, and I feel guided to practice on some people. Would you be interested in coming for a reading? And the response was incredible. To be honest with you, the people that had known me the longest, so I had some friends that I reached out to that I've known since I was, you know, in grade school, like tiny elementary stuff. So they all kind of, the reaction was like, oh yeah, well, I'm not really super surprised. And I was like, really? Like, it was like so anticlimactic. It was pretty humorous actually, because they just weren't surprised. And I think that it was more surprising to me than it was to some of these people. Because they just knew that that's kind of, those were the things that I always talked about. I always talked about energy, and I often talked about seeing ghosts and stuff like that, but I guess I wasn't aware that I had shared so much with them. So anyway, so a lot of people were just kind of like, yeah, absolutely, I want to try this out, let's do this. And so I kind of started with this small group of people. Some people weren't quite ready. A couple of the girls just, it wasn't interesting to them, or what, they weren't interested, or they were scared, or they just didn't know, which was totally cool. That was awesome. But it kind of just started with that small group of girls, then group of names that Spirit kind of told me about. And everything kind of spiraled from there. So then from them, they kind of told some friends and family, and they would come and see me. And again, I was just doing free readings. I was trying to just sort of get a bearings on how it worked. I can remember my very first reading was on a very, very, very amazing friend of mine who I've known for most of my life. And you know, you think that you know someone so well that you can't really read for them, but I hadn't really been in touch with her too much over the years. So I remember I had to kind of go and sit next to her and touch her to get her energy, because I was so used to, as I mentioned in my last video about this, I was so used to getting messages through Reiki that I kind of felt like as if that's how I had to get the messages. So it was kind of fun, kind of interesting. It's neat to look back. And I remember I had like oracle cards or tarot cards or something that I was using as well as visual prompts. But her reading was great. It was accurate. It was exactly what she needed, and it was very helpful for me. So I kind of went through the motions. I probably for a couple of weeks just kind of saw a few people every week and practiced on them. And then word started spreading. And this was where I was kind of forced to start to tell kind of more and more people, and kind of coming out of my shell a little bit, and really owning the fact that, yeah, hey, I'm a medium. I know it's not conventional. I know not everybody, you know, is shouting about this and that they're doing this and that this is something that a lot of people even really understand, but I had to just kind of come into it and say, this is me. And that's been, I think, my biggest journey with all of this. I have to say, just kind of, yes, I told people, and yes, I got varying reactions, which I'll talk about, but I didn't really care that much, to be honest, kind of going into it, what they were going to think, because I was so aligned with Spirit. I was so sure that I was talking with them. I was so sure that I was literally being the medium between them and the person sitting across from me, especially after having some of those first initial practice sessions. So I didn't really care that much what other people thought. I kind of went into it knowing that not everybody's open. And then that was perfectly okay. I didn't need people's approval by any means. I'm still me, I'm still Jen. So, if you can't approve of this, that's totally fine. Let's still be friends. That was kind of my mentality. But I really, really, truly was so lucky because I got such a more positive vibe from people than I think I ever expected. I want to talk a little bit about my family because and I mentioned this again in my video prior, they were very supportive, and I think it was just so not uncommon for us to talk about spirit. All of us have had, experiences growing up and where we felt and sensed spirit around. We often talked about our deceased family members and just kind of vibes and energy and all that kind of stuff. It wasn't really taboo in my house. So I was super lucky in that respect. I know that there are some people out there, and if you're watching this and you're a medium and you're, wanting to know how do I tell people what I want to be embarking on, or how do I kind of help people understand, there's a lot of people out there that struggle with telling their family, especially when, they've grown up with a place where you don't really talk about that, or it's not really resonant within their family members, within their parents especially, and that's difficult. And I was so fortunate not to have to deal with that. So I really had kind of a better time about it when it did come to tell my family. That being said, I was still nervous and I was still a little bit apprehensive because I didn't really know how they were going to react. I didn't know if they would take me seriously, to be honest with you. I was kind of worried that it's kind of like one of those things like, well, what do you do with that? Do you become a medium and literally do sessions and see clients the way that I now do? Or you just kind of go with it? Like, what do you do? Anyway, so I kind of just thought that maybe they would think it was a bit of a joke or wouldn't really support me in that sense. And boy, was I ever wrong. So I'm going to talk specifically about my immediate family. So my mom, my dad, my sister. I'll talk about my husband in just a second, but who's like incredible when it comes to all of this stuff. He deals with so much when it comes to me and everything that I feel and sense. But my immediate family, like I said, it was just something that I don't think they were very surprised. I think that they were kind of like, didn't really understand it, necessarily to the extent maybe that I hoped that they would, but they've been so amazing, and I've done readings for them and we do cards together, and we talk about it all the time. They always ask me, how work is going and all that kind of stuff. So luckily I was, super excited about that. And I didn't really have to deal with any kind of rejection or any kind of judgment when it came to my family members. And I think that that's probably where most people are the scaredest, like where we find the most fear is being honest with the people that are closest to us. So I was lucky when it came to them. I already kind of mentioned my husband. Oh my gosh, like he literally has dealt with so much when it's come to this type of stuff. And I think that he actually saw some relief because once I did start doing this work, I never had those nightmares or night terrors and hallucinations and stuff at night that I used to have, which again I talked about in my previous video. So I think that he was relieved in that sense. Again, somebody that came into this not really the way that I grew up, so he didn't really have that background of feeling and sensing spirit his whole entire life. So he didn't really know how to process that, I think, and didn't really know what to think of it all. But at the same time, not once did he say, oh, you shouldn't do this, or that's probably not a good idea, or are you sure that's really what's happening? Do we need to take you to a doctor? Are you a little bit crazy? He was supportive from day one and just an incredible, incredible man. So again, I was super lucky to have these incredibly supportive people in my life. I'm not going to lie. I mean, there were some friends that I thought maybe would be a little bit receptive to this. People that I grew up with that I hadn't talked to probably in a long time anyway, so I'm not sure that it mattered so much what they thought. But I know what they said about me, and I know that they didn't entirely understand it, and that's okay. I mean, again, I went into it assuming that people would be a little bit judgmental and that they wouldn't understand. So I think that that was kind of expected a little bit, especially when I think about certain people that kind of had those reactions. And again, I just tried to kind of stick with spirit and just sort of align myself and really surround myself with people that did support me. So if you're out there, if you're a medium, if you're going through anything that makes you feel so different than everybody else, or you feel like you've changed and you just don't know how to grow into that change because it's so different than what the people that are close to you are going through, you're kind of feeling that separation a little bit. like, I totally feel you because I know that I went through that in a certain respect. But what you can do is try to just lean on spirit, lean on your truth, so your inner being, and surround yourself with people that do support you, at least at first. Because other people, you know, they might come around, they just might need a little bit more time. So that's kind of what I went through, I think, with kind of telling people, sharing that I was a medium. I kind of had an easy go at it, I think. Like I mentioned, it was a little bit more laid back than I had originally anticipated. I still have a hard time telling people what I do. So if I meet someone new, so this happens all the time if I'm out, like if I'm at a doctor's office or if I'm at a dentist's office or something, or if I'm just at a party or a get together and I'm meeting new people, and the topic of conversation is often, what do you do for a living? So it kind of gets awkward, and I make it awkward because I'm just an awkward person to begin with. I don't mean to be, but it's just natural to me. So I usually kind of stumble and fumble a little bit. I'm like, well, I'm a medium, or I talk to dead people. Like, how do you explain that sometimes? But it's something that I'm really working on and really learning, again, to own who I am. And to say, this is me. This is what I do. This is what my truth is. I know wholeheartedly that, you know, I've been that channel for many thousands of messages that have come through for people sitting across from me that have changed their lives. And to witness that over and over and over again, you cannot ignore it. You know, you can't pretend like it's not there or it doesn't exist. So I'm coming into the realization that it's okay to say, hi, my name is Jen and I am a medium. It's a little bit more difficult to do that, but I'm learning and I'm growing and expanding into that. And, you know, really kind of trusting that it doesn't matter what other people think, that I can kind of be me, and I can do me, and I can, you know, see it for what it's worth and see the impact that it's having on other people around me, and really surround myself with those people that love and support what I do and love and support me. And thank you to you guys that are those people to me as well. So I love you guys so much. Just a little kind of tidbit of my story. I might continue it in another video, but that's it for today. Thanks for joining me. Appreciate you guys. Bye.